murder trial in India drags on after 37 years. Dozens of witnesses have died along the way. The Supreme Court says we can only observe that our legal system has made life too easy for criminals and too difficult for law-abiding citizens. I'm the Outsider. This is our motion tonight. India's justice system is failing. Well, speaking for that motion, Dushyant Dave, senior advocate at the Supreme Court in Delhi, and with him MN Singh, former commissioner of police here in Mumbai from 2000 to 2002. Speaking against the motion, Salman Khurshid, India's law and justice minister, and with him KTS Tulsi, president of the Criminal Justice Society of India, and described on his own website as a professional of rare grit and merit with a humane and compassionate nature. We'd expect nothing less of our debaters. Ladies and gentlemen, our panel. So now let me first ask Dushyant Dave to speak for the motion.
Well, at the beginning, I must say that I'm a little sad to speak in favor of the motion for the simple reason that I belong to judiciary myself. I'm part of the justice system. But having said that, I must confess that one should not be, as the biblical saying says, be not content with the state of things. And I'm certainly not one of those who's content with the state of things in the justice system. With almost 30 million cases pending across the country, over 60,000 cases pending in the Supreme Court, I think it is very comfortably one can say that the justice system has failed. It's not just failing. Because today you have 72% of those pending cases which are criminal cases. So you have something like 250,000 under trial prisoners who are in jail. It so happens that many of these under trial prisoners are ultimately tried, acquitted, and they find that they've spent 5, 10, 15 years in jails, which is absolutely appalling from the point of view of human rights. Equally, so far as the civil justice system is concerned, the people just don't get justice in time. I mean, there is a landlord, or there is a worker, or there is a pure, simple, small businessman. All of them are trying to assert their rights, and it so happens that it takes 30 or 40 years for them to assert their rights, which can be done very easily in a very short span of time. These things, according to me, are absolutely unacceptable in any civilized society, more so because our constitution is founded on justice for all. So what is really ailing, unfortunately, is something which is very sad, that judiciary is unable to recognize this. It has not accepted the position that this is an alarming situation. The judges, I find, after 33 years of practice at the bar, are definitely not concerned about these delays. This year, beginning this year, in 3 important cases in Supreme Court, Vodafone, the media coverage issue, and I think the Bhatia International's reconsideration, justices spent more than 75 days on 3 cases, where 60,000 cases are pending for a long time. There is today no declared policy of the judges. You know, the Chief Justice of India is the head of the institution. There is no declared policy. There is complete inefficiency, in my view, in the judicial system, although there are outstanding judges across the board, in high courts, in subordinate judiciary, and they work under trying circumstances.
Could you come to a close, please?
There is serious issue of corruption. There is serious issue of nepotism. I think there is a very serious failure on the part of the system.
All right, Dushyant Dave, thank you very much indeed. Last year, you paid the judges a big compliment. You said the substantial majority of judges is hardworking, honest, and sincere.
Absolutely they are.
And that's a reason to have faith in the justice system, isn't it?
Yes.
They are the last check and balance, after all.
Absolutely. But unfortunately, the judges are not realizing that they are not doing something to bring this system, cut across the procedural delays, and ensure that justice is delivered fast.
But the backlog is coming down. The Prime Minister said in August the number of cases pending had dropped by 60,000 between July and December 2011.
But the backlog in last decade has increased by 38%.
OK, but nobody said there weren't problems, but it's coming down, isn't it?
No.
It's coming down.
I would be very surprised to learn that it's really coming down.
The Prime Minister said 60,000 dropped between July and December 2011.
Yes, but one estimate has said that it would take 350 years if we had to dispose of the backlog.
Yeah, but he knows what he's talking about, doesn't he?
Absolutely, but he perhaps doesn't come to the courts and sees, you know, I see every day my clients who are actually weeping.
But he's acknowledged the difficulties. He's acknowledged the corruption. He said as far back as 2006, instances of corruption have now begun to surface in our judicial system.
Yes, but the Prime Minister doesn't do anything about the judicial judicial system because we have the lowest per capita, presence of judges, 1.2 for 100,000 people as against 27 in some of the Scandinavian countries and 17 in China.
Well, he's trying to put them under public oversight, and you're complaining about the Judicial Accountability Bill, aren't you? You called it an attempt to control the judiciary in the garb of accountability.
Absolutely. Judicial Accountability Bill is a disgrace to democracy like India. And the executive
Why?
would...
The judges aren't above the law any more than anybody else in the country, are they?
I accept that judges have to be made accountable.
So there has to be public oversight?
Yes.
So this is what this bill is trying to do?
No, I genuinely believe that judges must frame their own rules for that kind of accountability, and we can't leave that to the executive because the executive will abuse and undermine the judiciary.
Who do you leave it to then? Who practices oversight over the judges?
The judges themselves will have to form some kind of...
And if there's corruption in the judiciary, as the Prime Minister has said, then that process doesn't work either, does it?
Look, it's not that every judge is corrupt. The corruption is, yes, it exists, but the percentage is very low compared to the executive and the other branches of the government.
OK, Dushan Dave, thank you very much indeed. Could I please ask now Salman Khurshid to speak against the motion?
Well, thank you. I'm delighted the grilling that you gave to my very good friend Dushan Dave. This shows that the judicial system is successful, that the freedom...
The debate system.
The debate system is part of the freedom system of our country, and it is the judicial system that has ensured, amongst other things, that has ensured that people like Dushan Dave can come here and talk so frankly and freely in front of these young people about the judicial system. But of course, as you said, there are issues and there are problems. And the problems that we have in the judicial system are not problems that are aloof from or separated in any way with problems of our society. Extreme complex issues in our society that the political system cannot address. The political system does not have the courage to address. And the first past the post system of democracy does not allow you the kind of clear mandates by which you can tackle these problems. So who's tackling these problems? The judiciary is tackling these problems. If you have honor killings, you have groups of people getting together to say, this young man cannot marry this young woman. We can't solve it politically, the courts solve it. If we cannot prevent from complete chaos as far as the roads are concerned, or if the buildings are being made without building permissions, who steps in? The courts step in. Who clears up the atmosphere in Delhi, the air in Delhi? It's the courts of the country who do it. But of course, they are overworked. It's a tough job, a difficult job, a complex job. We have philosophical issues, we have political issues, and I think the courts are doing an admirable job. But having said that, 37 years or 34 years, even 5 years is too long for a criminal trial to take place. We have the most outstanding lawyers. Dushyant said we have outstanding judges. We have outstanding lawyers. And some of our problem is the outstanding lawyers. They can find a loophole in everything. Now, that's the kind of thing that we are up against.
Could I ask you to come to a close?
Absolutely. Next few years, what we will do is you can have a terrific system of justice delivery through interactive work between the Supreme Court and the Justice Delivery Mission. We will be garnering the modern technology, and that will lay out a completely different system, and you would get a better system in the years to come.
Salman Khurshid, thank you very much indeed. 37 years, you say, is too long. It's a joke, isn't it? It's absurd.
I said 5 years is too long.
5 years
What
about 37 years? What about the oldest case in the Supreme Court, filed nearly 36 years ago? The original petitioner is dead. His son is dead as well.
But the majority of cases, even in the Supreme Court, are not even 5 years old. Majority of cases.
There are 60,000 pending in the Supreme Court.
Certainly, absolutely, there are 60,000.
How did you let it get this bad?
Look at the population of this country.
And what about providing a justice system that's fit for purpose for the people out there?
The justice system in our country, when we talk about statistics, the justice system in our country is comparable to anything anywhere in the world. It is not the number of people to whom you provide justice.
It's not 37 years is comparable to anywhere else in the world.
37 years
when the justices actually said such a delay does not violate the right of the accused for speedy trial. What are they talking about?
Of course it does, but we've also decided cases in 6 months.
So they're talking nonsense.
We've also decided nonsense, never. 6 months, 3 months. The fast-track court system in this country...
They're saying 37 years does not violate the right of an accused to a speedy trial.
One swallow does not a summer make, and one aberration of 37 years will not condemn the entire system.
And 35 million cases pending in the court. That doesn't condemn the situation either.
Well, it doesn't, but it's a matter of concern. It's a matter of worry, but it's not 60,000 that came down last year. It is 600,000 that came down last year.
The question is, what are you doing about it?
What we're doing about it is setting up a justice delivery mission, computerizing all our courts, putting them on a national grid, linking police stations with magistrates' courts.
And as you said in your opening remarks, asking the courts to do what you can't do as politicians. Well, asking them to get involved because you don't have the political will or the political mandate
Not the political will, but the political mandate. We are a complex country. We are a very, very, very difficult country to govern.
Your own justices are saying our legal system has made life too easy for criminals and too difficult for law-abiding citizens.
Yeah,
that's the opposite of what your justice system is supposed to do,
This is not the collective voice or conscience of the entire judicial system, but
it is the Supreme Court.
They are sensitive. Supreme Court is 32 judges. A bench of 2 judges can say something. Another 2 can say something else.
Are they wrong?
They're not wrong. But what we do in our system is when 2 judges say something, it can still go to another 5 judges. 5 judges can go to 7 judges.
You agree with them?
No, of course. We don't have to disagree, but this is not the entire truth. This is part of the truth, but not the entire truth. We are tackling very, very difficult kinds of crime.
Right.
We are tackling very difficult issues and problems. We appreciate what the judiciary is doing. We are proud of our judiciary, and we believe that they will finally deliver.
Salman Khurshid, thank you very much indeed. Now, could I please ask MN Singh to speak for the motion?
Well, I will not go so far as to say that the judiciary has failed India, because that will probably be a very harsh assessment of the system.
Thank you.
But I would certainly say that the justice delivery system has totally failed in our country. We find that the law-abiding citizens are the only ones who are afraid of the law. Those who break the law are not at all afraid of law. And the result is that there is neither respect for law nor there is fear of law. And unless you have the fear of law and the respect for law, you can't maintain law and order in the society. It is the duty of the state to protect the life and liberty of the citizens. In this task, unless our legal system assists you and the laws are helpful to you, you have nothing but failure in the matter of protecting the life and liberty of the citizens. And the result is that you are not able to maintain the law and order. And therefore, I would say that we have failed as a system to administer justice. Now, the legal system is so sluggish in our country, and our procedural law is so archaic and so prone to delays. Our justice system is so expensive that the poor people of this country just cannot afford it. It is beyond the reach of the ordinary people to seek the protection of the law. Now, the result is that when the law is not able to help you and protect you, the people have to perforce go and seek extra legal remedies. In this city of Mumbai, I have seen the people go to the gangsters. If you have a problem with your property, if you have a difficult tenant and he is not vacating your house and you need the house to live yourself, if you have a property dispute, our courts have not helped you, people have gone to the gangsters to get their help for money. I have an example. I have an example here in this country where a judge sought the help of a gangster to recover his money which he had lent to somebody else. This is the most sad commentary on the legal system, and unless this changes, I'm afraid this country has no hope. I feel...
All right, okay, well, we have to stop there, I'm afraid. MN Singh, thank you very much indeed. You want respect for the law, and you want fear. You want a society where people are afraid of the justice system, afraid of the police?
People must have healthy respect and healthy fear, both for the law.
Well, you already have fear of the police in this state, don't you? 21,000 cases registered against the state police between 2006, 2010, 21 cases.
I'm afraid, going by
including illegal detention and custodial
Going
death.
by what happened on 11th August at Azad Maidan, where policemen themselves were thrashed, I think your statement, the people are afraid of the police, probably those are the old stories. people have no respect for the law and no respect for the law enforcers themselves.
Why did the Times of India publish a blog last year saying there's an outrageous 1,500 people died in police custody in 2010?
These are all very wrong figures given.
These are wrong figures.
Yes.
So how many people die in police custody then?
Nobody dies in the police custody. Let me tell you.
Nobody dies in police custody?
Very few. The people die in custody, and the custody includes even judicial custody. The figures which go, they have been...
How come the police have this reputation?
This is total misrepresentation of this situation, total misrepresentation of the facts.
It really
people
is?
Dying in the jails, people dying in judicial custody.
So they're all dying of natural causes?
No.
They're all dying of natural causes?
Most of them.
Nobody's beaten up in jail? Nobody's maltreated in jail?
There are people maltreated in
so some people are dying?
In the course of police investigation, of course, this is again the weakness of our legal system, where under the constitution of our country...
So isn't the police as much a part of the problem?
Nobody can be compelled to be a witness against himself. The result is the police, they do sometimes use third-degree methods, which results in accidents. That is the fact of the life, and therefore I would blame the law rather than blame the police. You have to change the law.
Why? We saw large-scale human rights violations taking place, didn't we, when the Terrorist and Disruptive Activities Prevention Act was
Give the example, please. Give the example.
Which Human Rights Watch gave plenty of examples.
Yes, like for example.
This was then the cause for the government to allow the act to lapse, wasn't it?
Well, there are some examples. There are some cases where human rights are violated and complaints are there. They are looked into. There are machinery created by the law.
And the police's hands are clean, you maintain?
Well, I don't think anybody's hands are clean in this country. I will have to be very plain to admit the fact of the life is that I said there was a judge who sought the help of a gangster to recover his money, which he has given to somebody. If this can happen in the judiciary, it can happen in the police, it is happening every day in the political field.
And it happened when you were police commissioner.
It is happening in the business world.
And it happened when you were police commissioner.
Well, you give an example which happened in my time.
No,
it has not happened.
No.
It has not happened during my...
You were the only police commissioner where everything happened cleanly.
About my tenure, I will say it has not happened, but it can happen. It has happened in the tenure of other commissioners.
All right, Aman Singh.
It can happen.
Aman Singh, thank you very much indeed.
You have to blame the system, not the police.
Thank you. Could I please ask KTS Tulsi to speak against the motion now, please?
I find that this topic, justice system has failed in India, is too harsh a statement. So we can't say it has failed in India because there are 14 million cases which are filed every year. And there are 10 million cases which are decided every year. It is just that 4 million cases get added. To say that there is no justice is totally wrong. I would say that if the constitution makers were alive today, and if they were to make an assessment of the democracy in India, they would say that they are the proudest about the performance of judiciary in this country. It's the greatest of institutions. It's not only the most powerful institution in India, it has emerged. It's perhaps one of the most powerful Supreme Courts in the world by the sheer number of cases that are decided by the Supreme Court and by the High Courts and by the subordinate courts. The only country in which more cases are filed than in India is perhaps the United States, and many times over. But Indians are also litigious society. The point is that we must increase our infrastructure to be able to take care of at least the 14 million cases that are filed every year and not allow them to be added. The question really is that we should not miss the contribution of the judiciary.
All right.
In stabilizing judiciary. Please? Stabilizing judiciary.
All right.
Stabilizing democracy in this country. The maximum contribution that has been made is by the Supreme Court of India. And so therefore, I do not accept this. And I think Dushyant Dave contradicts himself when he says that we have outstanding judges. They're mostly all very honest. And yet the justice system has failed.
I have to ask you to wrap up. KTS Tulsi, thank you very much indeed. You've changed your views a lot in the last few years. In 2008, you said, I feel the judicial system is becoming more and more irrelevant, particularly for the poor man. You said it's a matter of grave concern.
Of course.
No poor person can afford to fight litigation for decades.
Of course.
If we do not strengthen the criminal justice system, mafias will begin to rule this country.
You see, Tim is a very smart person. He read my article and then asked me to speak against the motion. I'm only
no, I personally did not ask you to speak one way or the other.
I'm only a lawyer.
You're sitting there of your own free will. Nobody dragged you into this seat.
That's all right. That's all right. Nobody dragged me, but I get a brief to argue a particular viewpoint. I do that.
Well,
I'm a lawyer.
These were pretty serious criticisms that you made.
No, I say that truth doesn't lie on either side. The truth lies somewhere in between.
Which is a way of having it both ways.
In between.
Yes? It's a way of having it both ways. And since
there is an extreme view being offered on the other side, I will offer the other extreme view.
This is an unpaid brief, by the way. This is an unpaid brief.
It would have to be.
Pro bono.
It would have to be.
Yes.
It would have to be.
Of course.
But you had massive criticism of the government as well. You said the government, the bureaucrat, doesn't want the judiciary to function efficiently.
Of course he doesn't. I maintain that. He doesn't want, otherwise judiciary would have been provided 10 times more infrastructure. You see, the bureaucrat, if he is caught in a corruption matter, he firstly does not want the sanctioned matter to be decided for a decade until he retires. And after he retires, he hopes that the trial will not come to an end till he dies.
But this is not exactly a sign of a healthy justice system, is it? If the government is actively, in your view, working against the judiciary functioning efficiently?
No, it's not only government in India.
We're talking about India. We're talking about India.
That's natural for governments to try to perpetuate their own turf and not to allow judiciary to become more efficient. If judiciary were to be more efficient, they would perhaps lose their job in a year. And they don't want that to happen. So I'm saying there's a vested interest in the civil service not to allow the judiciary to become efficient.
And the 59% of people who talked to Mint magazine in 2007 and said they had paid bribes to lawyers, 5% to judges and 30% to court officials, also a sign of the justice system functioning properly?
No, but you see, what you call a bribe to the court official is nothing but reward.
Nothing but what?
Bakshish, thank you.
That's okay. That's okay, is it? That's okay.
It's like you tip,
that's okay.
It's like you tip the taxi driver.
Okay, so a bribe is a tip. A bribe is a tip. We could wonder whether that is...
If it is 10 rupees...
Are you seriously putting that forward as an argument?
Of course.
But it's okay to tip whoever, call it a tip, and it's fine.
If you give the PN 10 rupees, that's a bakshish. You give a tip to the taxi driver in Manhattan, it's not bribe. In fact,
we're talking about a court of law, KTS Tulsi. We're talking about a court of, not a taxi ride.
That's all right.
There used to be a big difference. Thank you very much indeed. All right, we're going to take a short break, and while we do, a question to the audience based on what they've heard so far. Who would they trust more, the government or the courts? The answer in a few moments. Join us then. Welcome back to our debate in the Indian city of Mumbai. The motion tonight, India's justice system is failing. During the break, I put a question to our studio audience. Who do they trust more, the government or the courts? Well, we now have the answer. 18% said they trust the government more. 82% said they trust the courts. Saman Khurshid.
So we won the debate.
No. Doesn't really look that way, does it? Doesn't. Well, this is hardly a vote of confidence in the government, is it?
No, I understand. I understand. But when you pitch the government against courts, I do believe in this country, the courts will get more respect. We respect the courts, and the courts are respected by the people. That solves our debate today, but it also solves the debate of our democracy. In our democracy, the courts do respect governments, and the governments have to perform according to the constitutional mandate. But I think the fact that ordinary people have such huge trust in the court system and the judicial system...
And so little in the government.
...is a good thing. Fine.
And so little in the government.
Because governments can change, courts cannot change.
All right, Dushyant Dave. Your response to the audience.
Let me say one thing, that judiciary, has a larger-than-life image. One of the reasons, principal reasons, is the performance of judiciary in public law domain. And that's where, because of the failure of the executive, the judiciary has stepped in and into areas perhaps which judiciary should never have stepped into. For example, policy making. Judicial review of administrative action is at the highest in India today. And there, the judges certainly have done remarkable job. There is no doubt about in checkmating the government. But the real problem is that in private adjudications between citizens, that's where judges really are failing. And judges are not able to understand.
So they don't deserve all the confidence that our audience has invested in them. That's what you're saying. They don't deserve it.
No, they really, according to me, they don't. Because if you were to ask the litigants, they will tell you that how does it matter if the judge is going to and decide the 2G cases? What about my case for evicting my tenant or for getting my salaries which have been pending for 20 or 30 years? So to that extent, I don't think judges can really claim any credit in having done any substantial progress.
All right, KTS Tulsi, how are you going to spin this one?
You see, I tell you that the people, this audience is representative of the people of this country. People trust the judiciary because it has preserved fiercely its independence. It has kept the legislature and the executive in check. And they have been now ranked as the top protectors of the rights and liberties of the citizens.
MN Singh.
Well, I think this comparison itself is very wrong between the government and the judiciary. I mean, there is no comparison. One is executive, the other is the law enforcement, the law delivery system.
But they're both public bodies, aren't they?
The government is always in the firing line because the government is supposed to deal with the day-to-day problem, and the government is there to deliver on the day-to-day basis, deal with the ordinary problems of the people and the country's economy and law and order and whatnot. Judiciary works in a very limited sphere. It is supposed to deliver justice. I think this comparison is very wrong.
What we're going to do now, we're going to throw this issue open to the audience. Our motion tonight is that India's justice system is failing. If you have a question, please raise your hands. We'll get a microphone to you. We have a lot of questions out there. Gentleman in the blue shirt, right at the top.
To Mr. Khurshid, you spoke about an unclear political mandate as the reason for depending more on the judiciary. However, what is the role of the legislature in the apparent failure of justice in the country? For example, if gross human rights violations are carried out citing provisions of the Armed Forces Special Powers Act, is it really the fault of the judiciary or rather the legislature for framing a poorly worded law that leads to such crimes and violations in the first place?
Minister Khurshid.
Well, the issue there is not of a badly worded law. The issue there is of an ideological position balanced with needs of security. This is something that Parliament can debate, Parliament can change its view, Parliament can come up with a new law. But as far as our constitutional provisions are concerned, the judiciary is entitled to question anything that we legislate, so long as the judiciary also relies upon the Constitution.
But he's asking you how these human rights violations take place under the Special Powers Act if the legislation has been properly drafted. They shouldn't take place, should they?
No, there are obviously exceptional areas where national security is involved and the Armed Forces Special Powers Act, by very nature and definition, are applied only in very special circumstances. Whether as a country we should allow this kind of thing to happen and or not, and be prepared to take greater risk in terms of security. These are issues that frankly have to be decided by public mandate.
Do you want to come back on that?
Yes, sir. So to what extent would you think that it is appropriate for the judiciary to comment on the powers given under the AFSPA? And how open would you be to the judiciary recommending changes? Under the Special Powers Act. And how open would you be to the judiciary recommending changes to the same?
They always do that. The judiciary has recommended changes in POTA, in NSA. Judiciary has examined this act as well. So we are open to the judiciary taking the final call. Of course, we hope that the judiciary will always understand that we have special reasons based on information of national security, why we bring about such a legislation.
Okay, Dushyant Dave.
I think there are two aspects. One is the constitutional validity of that provision, which is a very different issue. But its implementation, as you are rightly pointing out, is seriously questionable. And that's where judiciary really has to step in. When they find that the kind of power that is exercised in individual cases is badly exercised or exercised in excess, the judiciary must step in. My own feeling is that judiciary in this country has not been so strong as it ought to be on human rights violations. For example, in 1984 riot cases in Delhi or 2002 riot cases in Gujarat, I personally feel that judiciary has failed this country, as it did fail in the emergency era when they said that the human rights could be suspended and nobody could really approach the courts. So I personally feel that judiciary has to be much more stronger to really strike at the kind of abuses which take place under the provisions of that act.
Can I just add something there? It's the same judiciary, and you know this, the same judiciary in the Supreme Court that has actually gone as far as to say that a judicial order can also be violative of human rights. This is the same judiciary saying it. So I think the richness and the intensity of thinking process of our judiciary have to be appreciated.
Emin Singh, you think the judiciary should have stepped in where human rights violations were carried out by the police in this country?
Well, I don't think the problem is so much with the law as such. The problem is with the implementation and the enforcement of the law. And that is something which has to be checked by the system itself.
Is it the job of the judiciary to step in? Where it is necessary,
judiciary can step in and should step in to check the abuse of law.
Okay, all right. We're going to take a question. Gentleman in the mauve shirt. That's it.
I would like to ask Mr. Salman Khurshid, why can't we have separate courts for serious offences like murder, rape, or offences against women and child so that they can get speedy trial?
Well, we actually, Mr. Tulsi can answer this better, but we already have special courts for economic offences, special courts for special heinous offences. The fast-track court system is supposed to actually address this concern of yours.
KTS Tulsi, you want to add something there?
We do have, for a very long time, Sessions Court is for serious cases where the sentence is more than 10 years. Those will be tried only by the senior judges. And that's a Sessions Court. Sessions means that it must proceed day to day. It's a different matter that the courts are choked and therefore the matters keep getting adjourned.
But do you think that the trials are speedy?
Trials are not speedy because it's choked. Like, you know, if there are 200 persons wanting to get into one bus, obviously...
You have to provide more buses.
You have to provide more buses.
That's what my question is.
Emin Singh.
Well, I find a trend in this country that more and more special courts are being asked for, so-called fast-track court. These fast-track courts are no longer fast enough. Actually, you have
They're operating in Bihar, aren't they? They're operating very effectively in Bihar.
I don't know. Personally, I'm not aware of that. But I think you have to stop this rather than asking for more special courts. Where from are you going to get these courts and judges? As it is, there is a terrible shortage of judges. But merely increasing the number of judges and increasing the court is not going to serve the purpose. I think you have to hit at the root of the problem. You have to take off the load from so many courts, of all these courts. High courts are also hearing appeals. Supreme Court is also hearing appeal. Other sessions courts are also hearing appeals from the lower courts. I think this appeal process has to end at some level. This whole process of the procedural law has to change, and some of the cases which ordinary courts are dealing with have to be transferred to either tribunals or arbitration and some other processes.
Okay.
Because probably the village courts, you have to take the load off these courts so that the trial is superior, and that is the solution, not creating more and more special courts.
One of the single biggest reason why justice is a victim in this country is tribunalization of justice. These tribunals are absolute failures in every form. And I am sorry to say that the Supreme Court is responsible because the judges have allowed the executive to take the functions of judicial work. And that's where a real serious problem arises in this country.
All right, we're going to take a question from the gentleman in the second row there in the blue shirt. Yes.
My question to Salman Khurshid, sir. Conviction rate in our country is very low, and perpetrator of crime, they get acquitted, and victims and their family, they are suffering. So my question to sir, what work government is doing for this thing?
Well, you know, these are...
I should say that you've got a conviction rate in Maharashtra at the moment. The last time the figures were produced, of 1.15%. Yeah. 1.15%.
Well,